Hey Divergent people. Today I'm going to talk about getting my proper diagnosis. This turned out to be harder than I anticipated, which I later understood is the case for most autistic people, especially those ones who receive their diagnosis as an adult. The first thing I did when I was certain I'm autistic was to share it with my girlfriend. Initially, she didn't believe me. And of course she didn't. She had never heard of autism before, except for the severe cases of the condition. Nor had I before I did my research. So I was as surprised as her to find this out for myself. Since she wouldn't believe me at first, I gave her some literature, and in a few days she came back to me and she said, "Whoa, you really are like that." Funny thing, later she found out that she's autistic as well, and her mom is autistic. I also later found out that my brother, my mom, and my grandma from my mom's side are also autistic. And my dad and my grandma from my dad's side have ADHD. What a lovely family, right? I'm going to speak about some of their stories in later videos for sure. So, with my girlfriend already understanding the issue, it was now time to ask my dad for help, and help I needed to get diagnosed. However, little did I know that it's going to be impossible to find a specialist to diagnose me back in my country. And here it's time to say that I'm from Bulgaria. Sadly, in Bulgaria, autism diagnosis as an adult is impossible to get. Even children rarely get diagnosed. The story is a bit different with people with ADHD, however, still mostly children get their diagnosis. As ridiculous as it sounds, people with autism diagnosis as children lose their diagnosis when they grow up. When they become a certain age, I think it was 16 and now it might be 20, their diagnosis gets changed. It gets substituted for schizoid personality disorder or schizophrenia. So you can imagine the support in my country for autistic individuals is non-existent whatsoever. I did not know all of this before going to the first psychiatrist I visited in Bulgaria to get me diagnosed. Thus, I got there really excited, only to find out that he is oblivious to the fact that adults can have autism. Children can grow, duh. Moreover, he wasn't even aware that people can have comorbidities with their autism, like ADHD for example. He thought of them as separate diagnoses. The only thing he wanted to give me a diagnosis for was generalized anxiety disorder. Even though I clearly showed symptoms of OCD as well, but he also thought of anxiety and OCD as separate diagnoses. Finally, he told me a story about the Dutch guy who went to him 2 years prior my visit, and his son was diagnosed with a more severe case of autism. So the father eventually wanted to check himself, in the Netherlands of course, and he found out that he has Asperger's. This psychiatrist plainly said that he would have never given him an autism diagnosis. You know why? Because he didn't look autistic. Can you imagine? I was done. I just stormed out of his cabinet. I had a meltdown. I started kicking stuff, and good thing my girlfriend was with me to calm me down a bit. I was so disappointed. A few weeks with very severe depression followed, throughout which I had very frequent meltdowns. Finally, a family friend from Turkey called. She knew about my problems for a long time, and she had a friend who is a psychiatrist, so she asked her to look for a place where they can get me diagnosed in Turkey. So, in 2 months' time, I was in Istanbul at a psychiatric hospital, and I was getting assessed by a specialist there. He diagnosed me according to the DSM-5 criteria, and he also interviewed my dad about me. It turned out I have autism and have the comorbid conditions ADHD, and OCD. I felt such a relief after 9 months of struggle. Later that summer, our friend from Turkey met me with a geneticist who worked at the same hospital where she was working at. He told me about the stem cell therapy, which is pretty new, that they did for a guy with Asperger's. He was a bit older than me, I think 35, and he was using medication to deal with his condition. So he really wanted to get rid of his meds. So the therapy worked for him because in about a month, the guy decreased his meds, and in a couple more months, he stopped them completely. The stem cell therapy managed to alleviate his symptoms of social anxiety as well as his hypersensitivity. He also ended up stopping the medication he was using. So I was hooked. I was very enthusiastic to have the operation as soon as possible. So, in a little more than a month, at the end of the summer, I had my first infusion. And then in another 2 months, I had my second one. In future videos, I'm going to share with you guys all about the stem cell therapy, what it managed to help me with, and what it didn't manage to help me with. However, overall, I'm incredibly pleased with my results. I hope you enjoyed me sharing this information with you guys. Thank you for your attention, and peace be with you.